What holds back the six-figure consultant from getting to seven figures? I'm going to share with you the most common obstacles, challenges, and also opportunities for you to go from six figures to seven figures. We've helped hundreds of consultants over the years to do this exact thing, to go from six figures to seven figures. And there are some very common issues that consultants encounter, and you learning how to navigate them or to prepare for them or simply to overcome them really could be the difference between you struggling and treading water at the six-figure level and holding you back, from getting to that, what some people consider to be the elusive seven figures. But I'll tell you from firsthand experience and from, again, working with hundreds of consultants over the years, that it's not as hard as you might think to get from six figures to seven figures. So let's go over some of the big things that you need to take into account and to look at that will help you to get to that level if you want to. All right, so the first one is trading time for money, or what some people might refer to as the time for money glass ceiling. If your model right now is based on hourly fees, or if you're doing day rates and you are a solo consultant or just a small team of consultants, you're going to reach capacity, and there's only so much time in any given day. And so if you're using the hourly model, the only way for you to really grow your consulting business in that model is to bring on more people. But you need to then start thinking about bringing on quite a few people in order for you to get to seven figures and beyond. And of course you might say, well, no, but I can increase my fees. Well, yes, you can increase your fees, but for most consulting firms, you start to reach a point in hourly fees where the market will look at you and think, that seems really high, and they're going to compare you to others. And so really that's one of the big dangers of hourly billing, is that you are comparing yourself, or you're placing yourself kind of in commodity status, because a buyer will just look at hourly fees and compare you to hourly fees of others, which is why shifting towards value-based fees, shifting to, either monthly reoccurring revenue type of structures, or even just project rates where you are baking in value, and of course you're accounting for and thinking about time and profitability, but it's not just based on how much time you take, right? It's all focused instead on the outcome is that you create for your client, meaning the result, the value that you deliver them, right? And that's what your fees are really based on. That is what can allow you to get to the next level, because there's leverage baked into that, right? You can spend potentially less time than you would have before delivering on a project, but make significantly more, because the client is not paying you for your time any longer. They're paying you for the outcome. And so when you can find ways to deliver that outcome, right, even at higher fees, but at lower involvement or lower time required, that is a massive win for you, and it can really unlock significant growth. Now, the next obstacle in getting to the $1 million level is really the entrepreneur or the founder themselves, meaning it's likely you, right? If you are trying to do everything inside of your business, you're likely holding yourself back. If you are doing all of your bookkeeping, right? You're doing your billing, your invoicing, you're doing your research, your design, your presentation creation, you're doing your scheduling. Like if you're doing all of these things and more, then you're likely spending, right? Or you are spending time on things that are not creating real value, or they're not high value. And so to get to $1 million and beyond, you need to start thinking about delegating. You need to start thinking about how can you step out of some of the things that are not high value inside of your business and either bring in technology, tools, automations, leverage AI, or delegate, right, to contractors, virtual assistants, part-time or full-time team members that can take over those things so that you can focus more on the things that create more value. A very simple example is that if, let's say right now, you're spending 20% of your time doing low-value tasks, and instead you get somebody else to do those, you've now freed yourself up 20% to focus on things that create more value, which might simply be the difference between, you landing an additional client or two per month or every couple of months. And that could be the difference of, adding an extra $300,000 or $400,000 to your business this year, which takes you well over $1 million as an example. So you yourself might be the bottleneck right now in getting to that next level. Another very common situation that I see with people who are floundering or just struggling and they're hitting that ceiling and they can't get to seven figures, they don't even see the possibility yet of how to make that happen, is that they're treating all of their clients and all of their overall, like their business, the same. Meaning that they look at, the different clients that they're serving, and they haven't done an analysis of which clients are most profitable. They haven't looked at which types of offerings are most profitable. And if you're not thinking about those things, you may, and we've seen this with many clients that we've worked with in our Clarity Coaching program, they'll come in and in some cases they're doing, $600,000, $800,000 per year. They're well on their way to $1 million, but they've either been declining or kind of plateauing for a period of time. And it's not uncommon to find that a good chunk of their business is coming from clients that are actually low value, meaning the fees that they're paying or the average engagement is quite low. And that's the majority by number of clients. That's a lot of their clients. And there'll be a smaller percentage of clients that actually bring in a lot more revenue and a lot more profitability. And these are not the same type of client, right? It's either a smaller company compared to a larger company. It's one industry compared to another industry. It's a certain role compared to another role in terms of the decision maker. There's lots of ways to look at this and analyze it. When you start to see the patterns, then what we've seen with many clients is that by shifting to the projects and the type of work that is more profitable, right? And where there's more demand, by shifting to focusing your messaging on a certain type of client that is higher value compared to treating everybody the same, all of a sudden you start attracting more of that type of work and more of that type of client, which is more profitable, and it really can grow your business significantly. And in many cases, it can actually reduce the amount of time you have to spend, in the business, because again, imagine that one high value client is worth 3 low value clients. Well, if you can do that and you can just now start bringing in an additional, 1 or 2 high value clients, that replaces 3 to 6 low value clients. And the time to service one high value client in many cases could be significantly lower than what it would take to service 3, low value clients. Now, the next thing we should really look at is a technology gap, because in order to get to $1 million and beyond, there's likely going to be some technology that you will need. Now, I want to make an important kind of distinction and call out here that I'm not suggesting by any means that you should be, doing a lot of technology, or that you need to invest into building out all kinds of complicated and sophisticated systems. To get to $1 million, you actually don't need a lot of technology. You might just have a CRM and, your standard email and so on and so forth. But as you start to become more established and as you start to really build out your business, there will likely be aspects around project management or CRM or other things that help you to service your clients or to do the work more efficiently and more effectively. And where technology really becomes more important is as you start to build your team, because for you, as the founder, you know how to get things done. You can kind of mentally juggle a lot of different aspects of how to run the business, how to service clients, how to do the marketing, how to do the sales, the proposals, You have that knowledge built into your mind, into your brain. But other team members, you should not have the same expectation of them. And so therefore, what it becomes really important for you to think about is what is the minimum level of technology that could really benefit you? What could help you and your team to run more efficiently, to run more effectively? And so that might be a project management system, that might be bringing a CRM, that might be something else. But really think about that, because again, I don't want to suggest that you go out and spend a lot of time and make big investments trying to put in some sophisticated and complex system. But what they said that it was one I'm just going to pull up here. The National Technology News and Sage survey found that 83% of respondents said that the lack of technology made it difficult for them to scale their businesses. That's really what you want to be thinking about, Is there a lack? Is there a gap right now where if you brought in some technology could really help to strengthen your growth to get to that next level? The next thing I want to share with you is a really important concept that for many business owners, even those that in some cases have been, running a consulting business for 5 or 10 years, they don't pay enough attention to and they don't really understand. And that is the acronym of LTV, Lifetime value, which simply refers to what is the value of an average client over their lifetime with you. Why is this important? Well, it's important for one reason. I'll give you a couple of reasons, but number one is that not all clients are created the same. So when you can start to identify and analyze what is the LTV of different types of clients, you may find that it's there's a certain kind of segment or a certain characteristic or a type of client that has a much higher LTV on average than others. And so you may therefore want to decide to focus a lot more on that type of client to attract them, to bring them to your business, update your messaging, so on and so forth, because one of those clients, again, might be worth significantly more than lower lifetime value clients. The second part of understanding LTV that is really powerful when you truly kind of embrace this concept is that you can invest a lot more into growing your business, A lot of business owners look at marketing, they look at sales, they look at making, what I call investments into their business. Essentially, let's say spending money on marketing or business development or sales, technology tools. They look at these things as costs. They look at them as expenses, and they hesitate to invest. So they might look at the idea of, let's say, creating a direct mail campaign to attract ideal clients as well. It's going to cost me $5,000 or $8,000 to do this. Okay, that's a bunch of money. Maybe this doesn't make sense. But yet, if you understand lifetime value, and let's just make a very simple example here and say that your average client engagement or your average client lifetime value, maybe your average client is with you for 2 engagements, right? And put those 2 together equals $75,000. So your average lifetime value is $75,000. Well, if you know that, and therefore if you believe that, let's say, throughout a whole direct mail campaign, it could generate, and you feel it's high likelihood that you'll land at least 1 client from that, would you spend $5,000 or $8,000 to make $75,000? I hope your answer to that would be yes, right? Of course, you have to think about your profitability and so forth, but as long as it's going to be profitable for you, then the answer should be yes, yes, yes. Like, I will put it in as, I'll do it as long as I can. And we have a client who did exactly that, right? They invested, I think it was about $5,000 or $6,000. We helped them put together a direct mail campaign. They did an absolutely exceptional job of executing it. And that one campaign they did brought in hundreds of thousands of dollars in business for them. So when you understand lifetime value, you can feel more confident in not thinking about your marketing and sales and these types of things as costs or expenses, because then you hesitate to do them. But instead, you view them as investments, meaning that you believe that you'll get a higher return than what you put in. And when you do that, right, what you actually find is that your business starts to grow. So this becomes really important and is, I'd say, a big distinction between the mindset of somebody who's kind of stuck at 6 figures and those that are getting to 7 figures and beyond, is they view their marketing, their sales, not as costs or expenses, but instead as investments. And they view really everything inside of their business as that, whether they're getting coaching, whether they're investing into a tool, right, or they're doing some kind of advertising or campaign or whatever it is, they're thinking about that, right, speaking engagement, so on and so forth, as, is this an investment or is this a cost? And if they believe that putting X amount in will get them more than X out by a significant margin, right, that's an investment. And if you understand lifetime value, you can often very clearly make a decision of whether this would be a good investment or not. The final thing I'll share with you here that really is a big one, this is very, very common in what holds people in kind of, at 6 figures and holds them back from getting to 7 figures, is they're just simply spending too much time in delivery. And that's, that might sound like, well, why is that a bad thing, right? Why is it bad to work with clients and to deliver? Of course you need to, and of course you should always be focused on doing an exceptional job for your clients. But if you're spending too much time in delivery and you do not have enough time to work on, marketing and brand building activities and, creating content and doing all the things that actually grow your business, you will at some point start to see a decline in your business, right? A plateauing in your business, and that'll hold you back from growing, which is why I've had conversations with clients, actually a couple of clients even just this week, about this exact same situation. They've come into our Clarity Coaching program. Their business has grown. They're now at a point where they're so busy delivering, and one person has a team, one person doesn't have a team, but they're so busy right now delivering that they're not able to spend the time that they want on marketing and growing their business. And so that's a problem. So we talked about ways that they can work around that and adjustments they can make and refinements and optimizations, right? Shifts and all that, because if you don't work on growing your business consistently, you may not necessarily see the impact of that tomorrow, next week, or even next month. But you want to remember that what you are seeing in your business today is not the result of what you did today or yesterday. It's the result of what you likely did, 60, 90, or 120 days ago. And so what you're doing today will likely not show up in your business again tomorrow, next week, or next month, but 3 months from now, right? Or 4 months from now, it will show up. And so if you're so busy heads down doing delivery today and you go a period of time without really working on marketing and, brand building activities and getting out there in business development, that's going to likely hurt you down the road. And so the most successful and savvy entrepreneurs and, consulting business owners always make sure that there's an aspect and an element and some level of marketing and business development and sales activities, right, and brand building activities going on, so that there's always going to be opportunities coming to them. And that's what will allow you to get to that next level. So I hope that you've found this helpful. Again, what I've shared with you here, even if you are already at 7 figures, but you want to get to that next level, many of these ideas and concepts will still apply. But certainly for those of you who are at 6 figures and want to get to 7 figures, these are some of the key things to be thinking about. There are many more. And if you'd like help on how to navigate this, if you'd like a custom strategic plan for your business, if you'd like an analysis to really look at all, components of your business to be able to identify where are the opportunities, where are the dangers, what can I be doing to reach that next level even faster, that's what we do with clients in the Clarity Coaching program. You can go to consultingsuccess.com or click on the link somewhere around this video or this page that you're on, and just reach out to us and get in touch. We'd be very happy to have a conversation with you and just explore, what's your situation, what are your goals, what are your challenges, and we'll do our best to guide you in the right direction. Whether or not that means that we end up being able to help you, we'll definitely let you know. So I hope, again, this has been helpful for you, and have a wonderful day.